of teaching 7 or 8 classes, I will now be teaching a series of 16 classes and Justin 10. Justin and I want to stay on the same schedule. And so because I'm teaching more classes, there will be certain weeks where I'm teaching 2. I will get those extra days down to a consistent day and time, but I haven't pinned that down yet. So please refer to the KWVH virtual calendar as you are able. The mentorship program requirements have not changed in any way. However, when I came here 4 or 5 years ago, I was not allowed to alter the mentorship agreement. We've created a lot of policy and procedure because we've grown from what was 27 mentee agents at the time I came to about 270. So there's a lot more policy and procedure. Everything will be much more clearly laid out, written, guided. I will email everyone in the mentorship program a copy of the new, much more clearly better written mentorship program and requirements. I will also have them posted outside of the training room doors so that you can look at them. I will also give the office staff copies so that if you want a copy, you can always obtain that from them. And it should make following your journey through mentorship and checking off all of the tasks that you need to do a lot more easy, a lot more clear. So that is why I am teaching twice next week. And I promise you by the next series, it'll be a 10-week series. Justin and I will take 2 weeks off because we all know I like to go on vacation, right? And then we will start over again. Again, they will all be recorded still. So people starting in the middle or wanting to catch up are still able to do so. There will still be access to all of my old classes. We're just going to make it much simpler. Sound good?
Yes. Good.
And no more transition teachers in Ignite, which is also good, right? So yeah, so I'll have to teach you the parts I don't like too, like buyer representation agreement, but we'll do it. All right, so today we are discussing, what is it, buyer sale or listing? Listing process from the agent's perspective, from start to finish, right? So I'm going to pull up a Google Drive document. I encourage you guys to please take your own notes. You shouldn't copy verbatim what I'm going to show you, okay? Because you really need to understand things on a level that makes sense for you. So I'm going to pull up an outline that I use with my team agents when they are wondering about, okay, I've got my first listing. So what do I do now? Just yesterday.
You can always type in where it says search and drive.
Yeah, I mean, I looked at it yesterday, so oh, look at our beautiful photos. All right. Screen share now. All right. For those of you at home, I don't monitor chat box because most of the time I'm screen sharing. I welcome all of your questions. Okay, so feel free to interrupt me. I'm a human, I make mistakes. Sometimes I say seller instead of buyer. Again, please correct me. You're helping your fellow students out. If you have a question that is directly related to what we're speaking about, I welcome it. If it is a question that might be related, please write it down and hold it until the end. Because it's very likely we will cover that question as we go through the material. And if it is unrelated, I will answer your question, but after class. Okay. All right. So from the agent's end, all right, as a listing agent, first, what am I doing? Well, first I am talking to a seller, I'm getting seller lead. I am securing a listing appointment. I have a listing presentation class. I have a comparative market analysis class. I also have a class that goes over on, how to deliver that listing presentation, right? So I'm taking these things for granted. You've already done the listing presentation. You've already done the CMA. You have a signed residential listing appointment. All right. So in order to prepare to put a listing on the market, you will have likely discussed and decided these things with your seller or sellers prior to engaging in any of these activities. So some of the variables would be to look into staging. So if your seller has agreed to staging, if you think it's really necessary, you would facilitate that possibility of staging by giving them referrals and very likely helping them to schedule the appointments for the stager to come in. I definitely encourage you to be present for that appointment, because what is the point of having staging there?
Makes it look better.
Yeah, and if you are not there and instead it is the stager and just the property owner there, well, that staging might come out to reflect the property owner's taste, right? But we are not there to make the seller love their home more. We are there to what? Make it more desirable to the largest audience of buyers possible, right? And this can be a sensitive issue. So the way that I handle it with my clients, it's funny, it's the clients who have particularly unusual taste that oftentimes are the proudest of their home. That's probably me too. It's probably all of us, right? And so you have to be very delicate. And so the way I'll handle things like that is, well, I believe that you have excellent taste. It is very difficult for buyers to see themselves in a home that's highly stylized. For instance, I have a really modern new construction apartment, right? And everything is black, white, and gray pretty much, and very masculine. I like big, bold, masculine style. But that might not appeal to a lot of people, right? That's a very particular style. And while I love it and I enjoy it, if I were to be selling this unit, I need it to look warm and like a blank canvas. It's very hard for a buyer to envision themselves in highly stylized place. Most buyers don't have that vision, right? So I encourage sellers to, first off, clean, declutter, depersonalize. If there are really bold colors, unless it is, a special room or it's very tasteful or period correct for that type of home, I will encourage them to paint everything white or a very, very light neutral gray. I have a favorite paint color by Behr. It is literally called blank canvas, and it is what I recommend to everyone.
It's like linen white.
It's like a linen white. It is neutral. It is not warm. It is not cool. And it has contrast in case there is crown molding or chair rail or anything like that, where you can put a bright white up against it.
What was your name of you?
Blank canvas. I mean, the name says it all, right? So obviously staging has a lot to do with whether or not the seller is going to need to live there during the sales process. So if they're going to live there, staging, especially if they have children or something, staging is probably not the right option for them, because if there's damage to any of the staging, they'll be financially responsible for it. And you have the ability to stage a whole home, main rooms, things like that. But I'll give you an example. So I had this condo that I had a really hard time selling. An older woman lived there alone. She had 3 cats. She was meticulously clean, but she had 3 cat boxes in the house. Everything was yellow, brown, dark, heavy, definitely an older person's taste. Only that condo is located next to one of the best elementary schools in all of Los Angeles. I also courted her over quite a long time, so I got to see the composition of the people in that building. And I told her, hey, I really think that getting everything to a neutral color and staging and moving you out is gonna be the route to go. Because I'm looking at the people in your building and I'm thinking very likely our broadest audience are gonna be people with young children and they're gonna have, while your taste is excellent, I think they're going to have, you know, the taste of a younger generation, what is currently in, which is light, neutral, that kind of thing. I think that there's a way to make your unit a little bit more contemporary. She put away most of her hokey tchotchkes, but she refused. We put it on the market. It did not sell. It did not get showing requests, but it was also a condo and it was the beginning of pandemic. It did have some balconies and a pool there. And kids were obviously not in school. Unfortunately, you know, she took a long time to agree to put it on the market. And it was when she was going stir crazy that she finally decided to sell. So it didn't sell. I convinced her to do the staging and to do the painting and all of that. And we did. But instead of using any of the stagers that I referred her to, she found one through a friend that came in. So I met with them and they were not well known and small, didn't even have a website. And I told them, look, I need this to be more contemporary, appeal to a younger crowd. We have brown carpet in here. I need you to neutralize it as much as possible. I want as much white in here as possible. I want you to pull things down. I want you to use metallics to work in that brown carpet. Okay, so if you don't know these things as an agent, design might not be your skill. I highly recommend that you spend some time with stagers. You read blogs and things like that. Go through homes, notice the trends, notice things, right? So the ability to take something that's primarily warm, throw up a white paint color. I still have to work with a brown carpet. By using gold or brass tones, I'm still keeping it modern, like a fresh look, a younger look, but I am pulling that brown in so I don't have all of the stark cool or white against all of this warmth. Anyways, stagers, she decided to go with it because they were $700 cheaper. Met with them, told them what I wanted, told them what the vision was, what the objective was. I come in and it is all fucking brown, heavy wood furniture and more brown and tan. And hokey, like countryside pictures on the wall, pictures with fucking glitter. I mean, I was just like, what is this? I literally said to them in front of my client, no filter, I am sorry, what have you done here? I asked you not to bring any more brown in. And they said to me, well, we think this is what looks best. And I said, well, you clearly don't know what buyers think looks best. And they said, oh, well, you're really harsh. And I said, I don't give a fuck, fix it. They did, turned out beautiful. And then guess what? So we got over asking 6 offers and she's very happy. So what does that say? Be involved, right? Be involved. That is part of your job as a listing agent, is every part. If you don't control every part, you're gonna have a disaster on your hands. Also, by being involved, how do you think your client feels? They feel supported the entire time, and this is a very stressful time for them, okay? So I'm just saying, be involved in everything, because even when you are, stuff like that's still gonna happen. Pre-inspection. So when I've gone for the listing appointment with my client, and you'll hear this in listing presentation class, if there is anything that this, the seller tells me during that appointment, or that I've seen when I see the house, or that we just that I learned during the time that the seller and I fill out disclosures, because when do I fill out disclosures, guys? Those of you taking listing presentation class, disclosure class.
Take your listing.
No.
Before I list the listing, yes, when I take it, as soon as my listing agreement is signed, but before I even begin to make preparations for it being on market. Why? I might learn something that I need to discuss with the seller to take action on. So pre-inspection. Well, if I see cracks all over the place, so I was doing some consultation work with a former student in the office who had a listing where there was cracks, really long ones in some of the ceilings and walls and all of that, right? And we thought, oh my gosh, this could be a structural issue. And if it is, it's gonna come up during the inspections, and we should know now. That way, We know if it even makes sense for the seller to sell. And if it still does, that we have unbiased information we know to be accurate. So we have a really good estimate as to what this is going to take. So if it's a major problem, we can market it up front as having this problem with the price reduction in place for the price, or offer to repair it, or the seller can repair it so that we don't have that issue going into it. Because when you have a buyer come in for inspections, you have no idea who the inspector is, right? You don't know if the dollar amounts you're getting in relation to estimates for repair are correct. You don't know. And you'll learn and you'll see throughout your career, even inspectors you hire sometimes. I had one say to me the other day, I'll put this little extra in for you just because. And I was like, no, you will put in there exactly what is necessary, exactly what you think. And if there's a range, and you can make your secondary recommendations that are optional, but not safety hazards or, non-functional items. I am not about committing fraud. I'm just not. And you know what? I'm confident enough that we're going to get what we need by being honest. So needless to say, it's unfortunate because he was a really good inspector. I won't be using that inspector again. In any case, this house with all the cracks everywhere. Immediately, we hired a contractor to come take a look because we could get him like next day. And he took a look and he said, yeah, it doesn't look like a structural issue. I think the wrong kind of material was used. It doesn't expand and contract well for the walls. So I wasn't like completely sold on that. We repaired those cracks, like, just like patched and paint. And some of them were back the next day. So we hired a structural engineer to come out, who took a look at everything and gave us a report that it wasn't structural. Great. So then we went back to the contractor and we got an estimate for what it would take to replace that type of plaster or wall material, whatever it was, that wasn't quite right. It kept on making the cosmetic cracks. And I think it was like $2,000. Yes.
Sorry, but doesn't that happen when it's warm and then it's cold?
Yeah,
out? It's
expand and contract,
expanding.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. Just like the idiots in my house popped like tile with something brittle. So like in the shower. So of course it breaks off and I'm like, it's supposed to be that silicone stuff. Like, what is wrong with you? But contractors have like subcontractors and workers and whatever, and you don't care. Yeah, I don't know. Even if you don't hire a day worker, there might be someone working under someone. Like I can't watch every single thing every one of my team agents does, right? But we discuss it at the end of the day, and if there are problems, we address them after. It's okay to be wrong, just fix it. So the seller did not want to make this repair. He was living there and he was relocating, and selling quickly was of utmost importance to him. So what did we do? We put it on the MLS. We put it in private remarks that there are cosmetic cracks no, we didn't. I'm sorry. We chose not to put it in the MLS. The reason why is because this could have thrown someone off who doesn't understand it, right? And so if I had a major issue, I would probably pre-disclose it in private remarks in the MLS. If it's an issue that would cause problems with the buyer obtaining a loan and needing to be cash or something like that, it would go in public remarks, because there's no reason for a buyer to even like consider looking at this property unless they have the ability to buy it cash. And you'll hear me talk about this in other classes in more depth. There's something called uninhabitable condition. Doesn't mean it's not livable. Just means there's something that a lender says is so wrong, they won't make a loan on the property. And it usually means that there's an issue with a major system. Even if a heater didn't work, a lender wouldn't lend if they knew that. Just don't. There's no reason to tell the lender any of these things. The only person you have to tell is the buyer and buyer's agent, right? It's not our job. And if you're the buyer's agent, the lender should never know anything about this. When we talk about inspections and negotiations class, we'll talk about how and why we hide everything from the lender. In any case, so you need to know these things, because do you disclose it up front? Do you disclose it privately or publicly? Do you not disclose it at all, but have the information so you can make it available? We chose to have the information, make it available. And when buyers came through the open house, we said, hey, we want to be really upfront about this, point it out, be very honest. These cracks, they continuously are repairing, we patch them, it's because it was the wrong material used on the wall. We have an estimate from 2 contractors on what it would take to fix that. We also have a report from a structural engineer saying that there is no structural issue, there is no foundation issue. And guess what, we got multiple offers on that and sold that with no problem. When it's disclosed up front like that too, they can't come back later in inspections during that negotiation process and say, my contractor said it was 10 grand, I want 10 grand. Simple things like a fireplace being non-operable. I almost always say my fireplace in any one of my listings is decorative only, because nobody cares at that time, and if it's disclosed up front, that buyer can't expect to be looking for a credit for it after inspections, unless it's discovered that there's also a structural issue because of the chimney or something like that. You know what I mean? Like a major safety issue. Nobody cares about the little things in the beginning when they're disclosed up front. So disclose it publicly, disclose it privately on MLS, or disclose it in person prior to offer time. Okay, that's the only way to protect it. However, the little tiny things like the garbage disposal not working, no, I would just disclose that in seller disclosures. So you have to exercise your judgment. It is actually unethical to over disclose prior to the time that's necessary. And I learned that when I was on the ethics committee. I know because I answered that question wrong. I said, you must disclose everything that you know as soon as you possibly can. And they're like, no, not if it hurts your seller's chance for best price and sale, right? If it's something minor, it should be disclosed at the time that it is legally required to be, which is during the seller disclosure contingency period negotiated in the contract. But you should know about it. And honestly, most of the time, if it's minor stuff, let's just repair it so it's not an issue later, so we can control the cost. All right, so talked about that. And why are all of these things important? Well, these are all going to affect your listing launch timeline, because until repairs and information are all obtained, completed, finished, staging, painting, whatever it is you're going to do, if you even need to do anything, you don't know when you're going to go on the MLS. And before that, the house is not ready for MLS until there are photos, right? So preparation, photography, and then MLS, right? Get quotes for any repairs that might need to be done before listing the property. We just discussed that. Open the title order. The second my listing agreement is signed, I open the title order. Richard, I'm so glad you're in class. Can you maybe share why it might be important to open a title order?
Oh, does this have to do with the square footage?
No. Vesting. Wasn't the husband still on title?
No, it's the POA.
Oh,
The
power of
way-
attorney.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
it's a
Oh, so
trust fund
yeah.
setup.
So
You gotta know who's on there.
Richard has a client, but that client is a power of attorney for a woman who is not mentally competent anymore. However, that client did not have what's called a special power of attorney. So you can have a general power of attorney for a person, but in the state of California, that does not extend to selling real estate assets. You have to have what's called a special power of attorney in relation to just that property in order to do so. Now, while Richard didn't know that, as soon as he got the title report and shared it with me and explained the situation, we were able to talk about it. And I said, oh, this may be a problem. So have your client speak to the attorney. And sure enough, it's a problem. But now it can be resolved now that we know. Other things, very simple things sometimes will show up on title, like an old loan that has been refinanced out or paid off entirely. That bank forgot to record what is called a full reconveyance, basically telling all legal entities, hey, this loan has been satisfied in full and taken off. Escrow can fix a lot of these things. Sometimes we work on it. Sometimes there's a weird thing like an encroachment that might make a sale nearly impossible. So while as agents, you're not expected to understand the title report, and I discourage you from trying to understand it completely and advising your clients on it. It is 100% important that you obtain that preliminary title report and you get your title rep to go over every item with you. Okay? Even if they say it's fine, it's clear. I want you to have them until you feel really comfortable and maybe can start picking things out that might be abnormal yourself just enough to know, oh, this is abnormal, let me call my title rep right now. I want you to go over every single item so that you understand what they are. Yes, John.
Can you please talk about insurability of the property? Because I had
No,
the buyer had a lot of claim on his income property when he wanted to buy this house.
So
So
I
he
will
couldn't
talk,
get the insurance.
John, I will talk about that in disclosure class because there is
Oh.
several disclosures in relation to that. But just to be clear real quick, what John is referring to is if a homeowner has a bunch of insurance claims on their property, the buyer might have difficulty obtaining property insurance.
Yes.
Also, since we're on it, way off topic, but no, it's okay. You guys should know this because it almost fucked me on my $9 million deal. I just got it. Insurance companies in the state of California are right now pulling a political stronghold move. They are almost refusing to insure property over a certain dollar amount.
Yes.
It was really just because of the fires. They're concerned about the increased wildfire risk. And so it was always very hard to obtain insurance on properties located in high fire severity zones. And we have California Fair Plan for that. A lot of companies stopped renewing the policy of existing policies that homeowners had. And what are they supposed to do? They're legally required to have insurance for their lender, but nobody will insure them. Well, that didn't, so the state regulates how much the insurance companies can actually charge. Well, that didn't get the state to be flexible at all. So they basically just, as a statement, put their foot down, and they're not even insuring zip codes next to high fire severity zones. So the place I just sold in the flats, it's next to BHPO, high fire severity, right? 20 different insurance agents to get them insured. They had to go through 20 different insurance agents. Well, we did find a few, but they were, it's called the secondary market, so expensive.
Yeah.
But guess what? Insurability is part of the buyer investigation contingency. So instead of having your buyers wait until the end of your escrow, have them start working on getting insurance coverage in the beginning. There is a contingency for it. And you can lift, remember, if you guys have taken class with me before, one of my pet peeves is that people call physical contingency the same as investigation contingency, right? Physical is just one finger on the hand of investigation. One of them is preliminary title report, is the title insurance. The ability to have title covered, because title won't cover every property either. If there are major issues on title, they'll refuse to cover. What else? Completely lost where I was. Oh, and insurability is also one of the fingers on that branch of investigation contingency. So you can lift 4 of the 5, however many fingers are on that branch. So if you haven't already done so, do yourself a favor. Look at forms, look at contingency removal form. Okay, look at the CR. I'm not sure I understand your question, but I don't monitor chat box. So if you want to let me know and clarify for me, I'm happy to help. It works for what we're doing here. All right. So open the title order as soon as your listing is signed. What else? So that same condo where I have the staging horror story. Guess what else I had? I had an HOA financial horror story. Yay. So if you are about to list a condo, or so let's talk about condo, townhome, single family, and PUD. So in the state of California, there are only 2 legal designations: single family or condominium. In other states, townhome is actually a legal designation of the type of property. Here it's just a style of property. I discourage you from speaking to other real estate professionals using the term townhome, especially lenders, because it can fuck them up because they work in other states where townhome is a thing. Okay, so single family, condo, And what's the other type? Multifamily. Multifamily. Yeah, this is a residential class. I'm good for it. So there's 3 types of property. So gated communities that look like single families, sometimes they are condos, sometimes they're a single family. And it has nothing to do with having HOA dues, okay? So how do you find out? Title software, call your title rep, ask them, find out. There's a legal designation of whether it is or not. Yes,
What about PUDs and beautiful?
planned unit development is a condo. Yeah. So yeah, planned unit development is usually like, still developing areas, like you'll see out in, a lot in like the Playa area. You'll see out in like Valencia where they have these massive gated communities with a bunch of pools and 300 homes and, so that's called a planned unit development. And those can be either single family or condo, and same thing. They can have HOA dues or they cannot, same thing. It doesn't matter what you think, doesn't matter if there are HOA dues, it matters what title tells you it legally is. And it doesn't always make sense. It doesn't need to, just need to know condo or town or condo or single family.
How much is it title?
Free.
Oh, it's free.
Yeah, are you kidding me? Any title rep wants to open a title order for you, but don't do it until you actually have a signed listing agreement, because only one title order, just like only one escrow, can be open legally at any one time. So if you're ordering title reports on properties that you don't have listed, you're actually behaving unethically because you're blocking a seller from potentially being able to do what they need to if they sell their home. Okay. But the good news is any title rep will be able to get you all of the information that would be on a title report anyway, without opening one. You just open one. Also, if you open one, well, even if the buyer's agent for some reason is fighting with you about who title is, they stop fighting when you're like, I already have title report open. Here it is. Not what they should. Seller typically should. Although, guys, it's not legal for a seller to force a buyer to use a title company, a certain title company. But that is our industry norm in Southern California. In Northern California, it's not, but that's also because the buyer pays not only the lender's policy, but the seller's policy. Here, the seller pays the owner's policy. So there are differences from region to region, all right? If you ever work on property out of area, make sure you talk to someone who's familiar with the area. Come and see me, I can at least point you to the right person. All right, so this condo, Mark, love you, but you're loud. He does have a lovely voice though, doesn't he? Man, if you want to learn how to get business from a phone call, that's the man.
That's the voice.
Don't, he might get mad. I literally invite him into my team meetings to talk to my team about it because it's not my strong point, right? We all have our strong points, but that's not mine. All right, so why would the financial health of a condo be important?
Reserve, right? That we can-
Yeah, well, they have an operating budget, which means the money that they budget for what it takes to run the building, right?
When it goes low, that means everyone has to ante up.
Maybe,
Special
yeah.
reserves.
Yeah, so there should also be a reserve account. That reserve account is because there'll be large ticket items that require maintenance in the future, right? A lot of condo owners are just really cheap. They'll be really conservative. They want to keep their HOA dues low. They choose to defer maintenance because it's by vote. If you have too many people on an HOA that are really passive and cheap and don't care, you're gonna have a lot of deferred maintenance, right? So a condo buyer has to be concerned about not only the unit, but also, if the building looks like there's a lot of deferred maintenance, right away, you want to check the health of the reserves because, as Richard said, if something becomes an emergency repair and there's not enough money in the reserve account to cover that,
Yep.
there is something called a special assessment that is levied on each unit owner, and it can be extremely high. There is no limit. It can be tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars with a very short time limit on which to pay it. The other thing that can be done is a smaller special assessment, a loan taken out, but that increases dues over time as well. There's a lot of options. What I'm saying is it's risky to a buyer when an HOA doesn't have a healthy reserve.
How big is supposed to be?
Oh, that's what I was, good question. That's what we're talking about next. What's a healthy reserve account? Well, I don't know that there is really any good answer for that. It's sort of, you know, I think that's in the eye of the beholder. Because if you've got a newer building that looks like it's really well maintained, it's in good condition, has a healthy, like regular HOA do, where the reserves will build up over time. And the building's newer, it's probably protected by builder warranty and things like that. I wouldn't be as worried about it, right? I'm not as worried about the reserve account being high. That's a new building. We're not expecting it to have a super high reserve account yet. We're not expecting it to have major issues yet either, or for a while. There's something called a reserve study that every HOA is legally required to have every few years. I forget the exact number. They don't all do it. That reserve study is planned to show the HOA how long it looks like each major system, like all the roofing, all the common area systems, all the plumbing, whatever, is gonna last, what it will cost based on projected inflation dollar amounts, and tell them. And it's pretty aggressive and it scares a lot of HOAs.
Probably why I don't do it.
Yeah, and it probably has the opposite effect on those conservative people. In any case, so, but if you walk into a building, so like this unit that I'm talking about with the horrible brown staging experience, clearly they kept it clean, but nobody gave a shit. You know, like stuff that broke, like the gym equipment, they just left it. They didn't even have the cameras in the hallways operating. They decided they didn't want to, they had really, it was a very secure building, but they didn't want to pay for, you know, the security, whatever services and backup and monitoring and all of that. Yes,
As a homeowner for a condo, do you sue the HOA?
yes.
Yes.
I mean, it's California, you can see whoever you want to.
Oftentimes you find.
Hold on, just hold your questions. Let's talk about this a little bit more. HOAs are all set up very differently. And that's why it's really important to get HOA docs as well as the financial docs when you take a listing. Because first off, if I'm like, okay, so hold on, let me finish the dollar amount thing. Okay, so if it's a smaller building, and when I say smaller, I want to say like 30 units or under, I want to see at least $10,000 in the year per unit, if I can. I want to see 300 grand. Yeah, totally want to see 300 grand. It's 30 units, that's a pretty big building, right? I mean, if you need to replace a roof on a 20,000 square foot place, if you need to repair plumbing, think common areas, you know, all of these things, it needs to be covered. And not only that, I mean, it needs to be covered with PAT because something can happen the very next day. When I start to get into buildings that are in the hundreds of units, I want to see a minimum of like 15,000. 15,000 per unit. 15,000 per unit. Smaller, 7 to 10, but I'd like to see 10.
So
However,
10,000 per unit.
yes, but remember, this is it's different. If the building looks like it's really well maintained, they're all over it. There's no issues. You have the HOA documents where you can read the minutes. You know there are no ongoing issues. You know that there's no upcoming problems that the HOA is aware of. Like, I'm not as worried about it. You know, as long as there is some money in the reserve account, and you can also tell the tone of the type of HOA that you have in power there, right? By reading the HOA minutes. If they're like, oh yeah, that girl in unit 12A, her boyfriend was over last Tuesday night and the dog took a shit in the playroom and they didn't pick it up. Believe me, that building is on lockdown. You don't have anything to worry about. I mean, if that's like the only gripe they have. But if they have that gripe and, oh, that leak that we've had someone out for 4 times in the parking lot has just sprung again. What does anyone want to do about it? Oh, the HOA management company says this. You know, and they don't have reserves, that's when I start to be worried. So let me tell you the little story about this one. They were conservative, they were cheap. And all over the place in the HOA docs. They were talking about issues that needed to be taken care of, that no one wanted to pay for, that they would keep on getting more estimates until they found a dollar amount that they liked. Also that, the pipe example I gave you was from this building, this massive leak over a parking spot that they had a plumber out to fix 8 times. Well, guess what? There was a lawsuit after the fact in this instance. Because the HOA management company, the person that was designated to oversee the management of their building, was hiring the same fucking contractor to go out there, not fucking fix it, and charging a bunch of money every time. And there was a paper trail of her taking part of that money. She was, no joke, HOA management companies suck, and there is more embezzlement than you could possibly imagine in them, right? And my question to my client was, she was on the board, by the way. Why on earth would you hire the same fucking idiot 8 times that couldn't fix it the first fucking 7 times to go out the 9th time? And why would you pay him for a job that wasn't done? And she was like, oh, I never thought about it that way. And I was like, ask your HOA management company for all your financial records because they won't give them to you. So turns out they have $12,000 in a reserve account for 30 units. The building is shit. There are dues increases that they need to make. And a special assessment that's going to happen because otherwise they won't even be able to cover their operating expenses. All because they wouldn't be proactive. So great, now I have this unit that looks really nice, but that is scary for a buyer to buy. What do? Well, we dropped the price significantly. We disclosed it. I disclosed it to anyone who called and I explained it. Now, I don't know the specifics. There's a secondary issue with that. I don't know the specifics, but I do believe that this has changed and you should speak to a mortgage broker about it. You can go ask May in our office if you want, or whoever you work with. At some point, a lender doesn't want to make a loan on a condo that has unhealthy financials. I think that restriction was lifted or reduced, but it was a fairly high number. So this also meant that I had to find a cash buyer. So what does this mean to my client? I have to disclose it, I have to disclose it up front, and we have to drop the price significantly. And we got several offers, and we fell out of escrow several times, the more that they looked at the HOA. Eventually we got into escrow. We made it a condition of the escrow that the HOA fire the existing management company, increase the dues, define the special assessment, hire the new HOA management company. My seller paid that special assessment. That's pretty standard. And only once all of that was done would we close escrow. And we did. And we did. And I knew this up front, but my seller would not agree with me to handle it this way. So I do believe we could have sold it for more. But you know, third time's a charm. The third time she finally listened to me and handle it the right way. Yes.
I just wanted to share, I actually just had a deal where the cash reserves wasn't enough for the FHA's lending.
Requirements, yeah.
So it ended up falling out.
Yeah. So before you go show property guys, if your buyer's buying with a loan, you should ask what? You should ask the listing agent. Do you happen to know what the reserves are of an account? And are most listing agents prepared? Absolutely not. But keep on asking. And before you open an escrow, if they don't know the answer or won't get the information for you because they're lazy, ask for the HOA management telephone number. And then good luck, you'll have to chase their ass down too because they don't care about anything.
Yep.
HOA management are terrible. Yes.
Kristen, if I have a possible listing coming up in the building where I live, that I am aware of leaks in the garage that have not been fixed.
Dude,
for
stop
years.
talking to me and refer it to another agent. Take a referral fee so that you're not liable for disclosure.
Got it.
Maybe, I don't know, talk to me hypothetically about it after class.
Okay.
I have to get water because otherwise I'm gonna die. So, let me see, what can why don't you guys, we talked about staging, pre-inspection, condo, why don't you guys pick the person to your right, to your left, and do a little role play? The person on the right is the agent, the person on the left is the seller. And agent, I want you to talk to the seller about why it's so important to get the information from the HOA. Go for it.
Okay, to the left.
Well, whatever, you know, just find someone, like, just find someone.
Those are my left.
Anyone who's finished the conversation, raise their hand. All right, great. That means it was a successful conversation. All right, guys. So, please tell me your conversation. Since it seemed to be quick and concise, that is the way it should be. Go ahead.
I just asked her if she by any chance, what's their reserve for the HOA, and she asked me why this is important, and explained her the importance for like the potential buyer, and that we have some money to fix in case something get wrong with the unit. And then she asked me how much I think would be like a reasonable price, and I told her like 15,000 because this is like an older building. And most,
15,000 per unit.
yeah, per unit. And I told her like most buyer in some point will want to
We'll
know
see
this
this.
information. And
Yeah.
it's better if we have it in advance and we don't need to.
So that we
Delay
can
the
want,
process.
so that we can position our listing best to protect your purchase price. And that, guys, is the key to all of this. This is what will get your seller to do whatever you need. Is I need to know everything so I can best position you and your property to protect your price. Okay? Golden words.
Best
I
position your
need to know
property.
everything. I am your person. I can only protect you if I know everything.
Just position your property
To protect your sales price. Yeah. And did you have a conversation about how it could affect the ability for a buyer to obtain a loan?
Yes.
yes.
Great. Yes.
HOA, do you need to ask the rent section also? The rent.
No, that's not allowed anymore. That's not allowed anymore. So lenders also used to look at the ratio of renters to owners in the building, because obviously they, generally owners take better care of the common areas in their units than renters do. But as of January 1st of last year, and I know because I was in an escrow with rental restrictions are no longer allowed. So
Tell me about that.
I can't ask the lender. I mean, you can type it in like rental restrictions in HOAs in California, and you can read the actual law. Like I pulled up the law, it was brand new, I didn't know anything about it. You know how I found out about it? Just by networking and sharing my problem with all of the real estate professionals that I know, including lenders and escrow officer and people that deal with many more transactions at once than I do. So if you have a problem, even if you think it's not solvable, go out and talk to everyone that you know that knows what they're doing and discuss it.
Yeah, because I was close to open an escrow. I'm a buyer, representing buyer agent, and I find out in the rules of HOA that there's restrictions, no more than 5 units of this
It's
building
not legal anymore.
can be rented out. And I
Just
let,
like literally Google HOA rental restrictions, California, you'll find the bill that passed. And it wasn't 2023, it was January 1st, 2022.
thank you.
Mhm.
I see that.
Good luck. I hope it saves you, girl. But Google before you call.
I call lender.
Honey, Google before you call.
Okay.
Because you don't know how good your lender is. Get the information yourself, then you know. You're welcome. And if your lender doesn't know, come and see me. Mine does, because he did that loan. I'll give it to you. You're welcome. Sorry, I'm just looking at the time. We're honest, I'm good. Hey, only 3 more months. Oh no, 40 places is funny. But look, are they pretty now?
Yes.
I was like, I'm getting old. What can I do that's gonna be permanent? What will I hopefully have forever on my teeth? That's six stuff. You know, whitening only did so much. I lost that COVID weight I put on as soon as we stuck them on them, so it helped. All right, let's see. So, also there are funny things like pet restrictions or allowing a washer and dryer in unit or installation of hardwood floors. And I'm not gonna go into why, but HOAs can have rules about them, and those can be deal breakers for clients. Okay, so you should know about this information so that you can answer these questions when potential buyers or their agents call. Because the last thing you want to do is end up in an escrow that cancels because the buyer gets information that is a deal breaker for them, like they can't install their own washer dryer in unit, that you should have known, and you could have said up front so that you didn't end up under contract that was ultimately doomed from the start. And days on market and cancellation are going to hurt your client, right? And hurt that price. So did you hurt your client in that case? You did. You were unethical by not properly positioning your client. Any items that should be disclosed within the listing? We've talked about things being disclosed up front, publicly, privately, through disclosure, sometimes just prior to offer. If you ever have difficulty determining that issue, just come and see someone like myself, Mike Rosales, Justin Jacobson. I'm happy to discuss that stuff with you. Right. Schedule retrofitting if required. Retrofitting is a general term. Retrofitting means to update something for increased safety measure. So when you use the term retrofitting in real estate, the way that the person interprets it, the other real estate professional you're discussing it with interprets it, is going to depend on the area that they primarily work in. Because retrofitting is a general term for bringing up to a higher safety level. So a city that doesn't require retrofitting, you talk to an agent that works primarily in those cities, they're going to be like, what are you talking about? Like updating, like bolting the foundation. They're going to think you're nuts and don't know what you're doing. So I'll tell you what I'm talking about here. In the city of Los Angeles and in the city of Beverly Hills, some other cities as well, but I'm just going to talk about these ones. There is actual additional retrofitting required. The state requires some as well. So let's talk about what the state requirements are. The state requirements are water heater strapping, double water heater strapping, certain way of doing it. Carbon monoxide and smoke detectors being installed in a certain way. In the city of Los Angeles, there are 2 additional requirements: automatic gas shutoff safety valve on gas line, and low flow water devices. Although I haven't seen a retrofiter in 10 years do anything, because the buyer and seller was like, what the fuck? You want to change all the toilets? They're nice, we like them. No. So I think that this is a hush hush thing in our industry where they decided to just leave that alone. I mean, I'm a bad girl. The very first thing I do, if I move into a new place, or gonna be shower head, is pop out the water regulator, because I want a nice shower. I mean, I'm just gonna use it anyways. So I'm gonna take a longer shower, or I'm gonna take a bath every time, which uses way more water because I can't get the water pressure I want. Anyways, so that's what I mean. Beverly Hills has retrofitting requirements also. Do we need to know what all of these are? Well, as a listing agent, you probably should have a pretty good idea. So if you don't know if the city that you're operating in, listing in, has retrofitting requirements, you can look at a retrofitting website, okay? So like Metro Retro is one, like look for big names. And if you don't know big names, ask your mentor or ask an escrow officer like Pele in our office, for names of, like the biggest, like the most common retrofitting companies, because on their website, it will have a lot of cities listed and what's required and what's not. In addition, some cities like Los Angeles and Beverly Hills actually require a certificate to be filled out by these licensed contractors that have to meet city qualifications in order to have the authority to sign off on these certificates. This work has to be done, completed, and proof of such has to be submitted to escrow, or you cannot close escrow. So if you're a listing agent, I would do this very close to the time I went on the market. The reason for this is I want to be able to close if someone comes in, offers all cash, and way over asking price, right? Because I can't close without it. Also, I don't know what work is required. So if it's more complicated work, like a gas shutoff valve that a permit has to be pulled for, well, we have to go to the damn city. That takes a little while for the permit. The work has to be done, and then we have to schedule for the city to come out and sign off on the permit, right? So we don't know. So do it in the beginning. This is not something that per se has to be done prior to going on the market, but I would do it, around the same time, yeah. And if your seller is open to doing it, do it before you go on the market. All right, draft and complete seller disclosure package with seller. We already talked about that prior to going to market. In fact, probably prior to deciding what your listing launch plan is, okay? And in person at the property. You can't always do that. So at a bare minimum, I like to do it over the phone and go line by line. Why? Because I'm not allowed to tell them what to put on the disclosures. Legally, you cannot fill out disclosures for a client that is breaking a law, okay? However, sometimes they don't know what a question means. And so as a real estate professional, if I know what it means, is it legal for me to tell them what it means? Yeah, if I know what it means. If I don't, it's not, right? So you need to get to know your disclosures. Also, terminology can be different sometimes, right? So if I'm at the house and we don't even know how to talk about something, well, the seller can show me and we can talk about it and figure it out. I'd be like, oh yeah, I know what that is. That's called a blank, right? Can't do that if I can't see it. And if the seller is misdisclosing, there's potential for lawsuit. Now, if it was just an error of misunderstanding, right, there has to be intent to deceive or omit for a seller to be, on the hook for failure to disclose. But you know what? I'd rather not even put my clients or myself in that process ever. Let's figure it out. And if we can't figure it out, well, and it's that concerning, we should probably do what? Have someone come take a look at it before we go to market. All right. Let's see here. All right, now it's time for discussion. This is probably around listing agreement signing time about securing valuables with clients. Even things that are like maybe just bright and shiny that kids might be interested in, things that could break easily, stuff that's not valuable, like spare keys hanging on hooks around the house. We don't want someone coming into an open house or showing, grabbing those keys and coming back later to rob the house, right? Yeah, that does happen. Little things like they'll just have, an extra laptop sitting out, or I had a client had very expensive video equipment, and I was like, let's just lock this room, and when people want to see it, I will unlock it for them. Prescription medications. I mean, man, even like it hasn't happened to me, thank God. But like expensive women's shoes, bags, clothing, things like that. So, I mean, hopefully they have a way to lock it up and secure it. But if they don't, or if they say, yeah, we'll take care of that, and you have that discussion and something goes missing, who are they gonna blame? They're probably still gonna be a little upset with you, but they're not gonna blame you. But if you don't have that discussion with your client, with your seller, and that happens, you're probably buying a new pair of private shoes.
Should we get that in writing?
You don't need to get it in writing.
Recording.
But you can if you want in an email. In an email, you can
That's
say,
what I meant.
hey, you know, like, I will oftentimes with my sellers, I'll kind of like continuously train them in the beginning for an open house or a showing, something like, hey, got a showing request for tomorrow at 1 p.m. or hey, just checking in with you. We're still set for the open house tomorrow, 1 to 4. We've been out door knocking in the neighborhood. I want to remind you to secure all of your valuables that will arrive blah 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 early. Da 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 da. Okay, got it. So yeah, that's the way to protect yourself. But it's also like just like, you know, train your sellers, and it's not about protecting yourself. It's about making the experience as best, you know, as good as possible for the client, right? It's about protecting the client. If you're protecting the client, you're protecting yourself. But yes, secondarily protect yourself. People are crazy. Not all of them. A lot of them are really lovely. Inclusions and exclusions. So do you think a seller knows what the legal definition of something that's included is?
No.
Yeah, and it's not their job to. Is it? It's our job. And some stuff is just weird and hard to figure out anyhow. So in case you don't know, the legal definition of what is included with the home is anything that is permanently affixed to the structure. Meaning a TV mount, but not the television, right? Meaning security equipment that's mounted to the wall. Meaning blinds, curtain rods, some things that are like iffy areas. What about mirrors? Mirrors are just usually hung. Some of them are permanently fixed. Guess what? Our contract has gotten a lot better in both the listing agreement and the purchase contract, that it lists so many things out now. But here is your rule of thumb for all things inclusions and exclusions. Be clear. I don't care how redundant you are.
It is expensive chandelier, like,
Yeah, if your
Exactly.
client, like, make sure your client knows. All the light fixtures stay unless you tell me you want to take one. It doesn't matter if it's expensive or not.
oh, it's a-
Like, they need to know, like, this is what's typically. What's usually negotiable is appliances, but most of the time, you should leave them. They're bought for the space they're in. A lot of times the seller will be like, oh, well, that's negotiable. You know, we can decide on price. But at least I know that, right?
What if built-in Murphy bed built?
I'm not, my Murphy fucking bed story.
Oh, that's a built-in.
It is. And not only that, so I had a listing, I sold my best friend a place out in Wrightwood, which is like a little ski resort town where my family also has a cabin. And in the inclusion, the listing agent, there were 2 of them, were absolute idiots. They're mountain agents. They didn't even know that they had to get fire hardening stuff, even though the entire area is all fire, high fire severity. Anyways, they wanted the Murphy bed. By legal definition, that's included, whether or not I wrote anything into the contract. But they were idiots, so I wrote it into the contract. So the sellers, more educated than their own agents, left the Murphy bed. And one of the listing agents, a woman, really liked that Murphy bed. Clearly doesn't know the legal definition of included and excluded, and didn't even read her contract because she fucking sold that bed. And it was a battle, and I didn't win it. Yeah. But man, this woman was like calling me, texting me 24/7. You're so mean, Kristen. I feel like you tricked me. I'm like, bitch, I did not trick you. I wrote it into the contract because I thought you were dumb. I didn't know you were dumb enough to steal. I mean, that was the gist of it. But it got close to those words after 2 weeks of haggling. I happened to be like in Panama at the time, also on vacation. And I just told my friend, I'm like, girl, don't you worry. I'm gonna get that bed back if I don't have to fucking drive there myself and live at her goddamn house. But eventually I was just like, so, Miss Listing Agent, not only am I gonna go after your license and am I gonna get it, but I'm gonna lock my clients in a small claims court and we're gonna sue you for the price of a brand new Murphy bed. It's probably cheaper for you just to return the one that you sold. Sound good? That bed went back.
Don't mess around with Christine.
But I had to tell her that like 3 or 4 times. I was like, I'm not joking. She's like, you're so mean. I'm like, no, I'm not. You stole my client's property. And if they didn't care and said they didn't care, that's different. But they're telling me they care and they want it. I'm doing my job. It's called doing my job. And I tried to do it nicely 60 times. And you're still telling me no. It's not up to you. It's not up to me. It is my clients legally and they want it. So I've done it pleasant 60 times. That pleasant is gone. Fuck yourself. I'm taking your license and I'm fucking suing you. They are, but I'm gonna do it for them because I'm not pissed. I don't ever want to talk to you again. I never want to talk about a Murphy bed again in my fucking life. Anyways, be clear, be redundant, be clear, be redundant, and don't expect the other agent to have any idea what they're doing. Tell them, and tell them again, and tell their client, and tell their client in front, or tell the agent in front of their fucking client. But it doesn't matter what's in a residential listing agreement, by the way, guys, because that is an agreement between you and the seller. This is so you know what the seller wants. The seller may change their mind if it becomes important to a buyer during the negotiation of an offer, right? But it can't be binding upon a buyer. The buyer did not sign that. It's you and the seller, so you know what they want and what they don't want. And then it has to also be written into the purchase agreement, and the buyer has to agree. Got it? So doesn't matter if it's a listing contract, doesn't mean it doesn't matter if it's only MLS, it doesn't matter if you've disclosed it. It only matters if it's in the purchase agreement, addendum, or counter purchase agreement. All right. Agree on a marketing strategy with clients. Create listing launch timeline or calendar. So once you know how long repairs, upgrades, all that's going to take, then you can schedule your photography. And guess what, guys? Repairs usually take longer than they're supposed to. Give yourself 1 or 2 day window unless you just don't have it for some reason. It's really time sensitive to clients, but it's on the market. So once you have the photos, it takes 1 or 2 days. You should start working on your marketing collateral, like verbiage, you know, the strategy behind what you're going to say, how you're going to market it. You should have been doing this for a little while now, talking to agents in the area, looking at other listings in the area and things like that. So that you are highlighting the best features and talking about what's important. You know, like if you're like this condo that I've been using as an example all day long here, I already knew, but what if I didn't know that it was a half block away from the best school, like the best elementary school, public elementary school in all of LA? Well, I would have hurt my client by not putting that in one of the very first lines of the property description, right? Because sometimes that is all a parent cares about in buying a property, is getting their kid into the school that they want. Also, sometimes they'll pay more because they don't have to send their kids to private school. In any case, what I'm saying is you need to start working on knowing what is valuable outside of the property and concocting your marketing language, making sure that you kick it by people who know federal fair housing guidelines very well, because terms that are very, very innocent to us, like walking distance, that violates federal fair housing law because not everyone can walk. Even though it's not like we're being mean, right? I've seen, I don't remember what, but I found this example of this MLS description that had 7 violations of fair housing law, and it's like in one. It was like beautiful family-oriented neighborhood, playground for children, walking a 2-minute walk from, you know, the house, located in a prestigious, like elevated economic area, right? We're just touching, like, she wasn't trying to be mean or wrong, but where can we find federal fair housing guidelines, guys? On a disclosure now. Any RPA or listing agreement will always have it included. It's called the Fair Housing Law and Discrimination. I forget, but it's like the second or third disclosure.
It's all over.
You can't. I know. Guess what? If you want to be a real big bitch, you can go ahead and flag that MLS listing for violating federal fair housing law. If I don't like you. I'm joking.
Really?
I'm joking. Let's try.
walking because not all people can
Yeah.
walk.
I
Right,
used to make jokes when I was in the wheelchair and on crutches last year. I was like, why can't I use walking distance? You know, like, ha ha ha, I can't walk. Yes, Richard.
Can you use the term like near? You
Newer?
say near.
Near, yeah, near. You will have tons of alternatives. Moments from, you know, less than a quarter of a mile. You know, like literally, I mean, 2 blocks. You have other ways to describe these things. 3 doors from. Let's see here, all right. So you create a timeline based on your marketing materials, your photos, any preparation for the listing. And then you create a calendar. That calendar would include open houses, broker open houses, things like that. Just any benchmark dates. And I would highly recommend entering them into your calendar with a reminder the day before, and also inviting your clients to those calendar invitations that affect them for access or any actions they need to take, right? You don't have to call and remind them. There's not gonna be any discrepancy if you're managing your calendar anyways. You may as well make sure that your client has that invitation. to the
With the
calendar.
MLS?
Huh?
With the MLS?
Oh, through your calendar. Yeah, whatever calendar you use, you can invite people. I usually put together an email with all the important dates also, but I need to benchmark them for myself because I'm super busy. I literally don't know what happens tomorrow until I look at my calendar right now. Like right now, I was like looking at how long class is gonna take, and I was like, when do I have to be the orthodontist? This is how I live. I don't even manage my own calendar anymore. Camelia does. Those of you mentees who are like, Kristen, can I schedule you? I'm like, reach out to Camelia. I don't know. I fuck shit up because she has stuff in process. And it's scary, but calendar, guys. Set yourself up for success, set your clients up for success. Can be miscommunication when there's a calendar entry, an invitation, and a reminder. I mean, I guess there can, but maybe you're in the wrong business if you're still listening. All right, let's see here. Right, description for the MLS. Okay, so print collateral or marketing material sometimes can take a little while to get. I'm not talking about open house flyer, but if you want to do anything special, and I go over all these kinds of things in listing presentation class when we talk about marketing plan. But I really like having door hangers to have my team agents go ahead and go. They have an opportunity to try to get business door knocking in the neighborhood, introducing themselves, inviting the neighbors to our open house. First off, it makes me look really great to my sellers. Secondly, it makes my open houses off the hook. And third, it gives us a chance for other business. But those door hangers, they're not a fast turnaround because they have to be printed and then cut, and then we have to distribute them. So I can distribute them. There are distribution services that will do it in person, but I have to get that material to them. They have to have a day or two, depending upon, you know, how large of an area it is to deliver them. And it still needs to be at least a day before my first open house, right? So a lot of times the trick I'll use is I'll ask my photographer, you know, like whatever you think my main shot, my favorite shot will be, can you please just doctor that one for me as today? And then I'll send that one for my planned open houses so that I get it ahead of time. So that's my hack on that. And most of them will. And honestly, your door hanger's picture is going to be this big anyways. Even if you have to snap it yourself, you can do any kind of filter or whatever. It looks all right. Do it, man. Do it. So just know, like, you should do your homework about how long it takes for you to get your collateral materials prepared, delivered, and whatever needs to be done with them. All right. Enter the listing on the MLS. You can save it as incomplete. So as soon as you have a listing signed and you have the disclosure signed, you can start entering the MLS entry in. It is hard and it takes a long time. A lot of the information is optional. I discourage you from entering fields that are optional unless you have one of those badass houses that has cool stuff that most houses don't. Don't shoot yourself in the foot. There's enough information that is required to give the whole story unless you have one of those, unless you have a mega house, okay? Or something just really, really special. A lot of stuff is open to interpretation. As you progress in your career, you will get very frustrated with other agents who don't understand the MLS criteria that is subjective. You know, when I'm looking for a view house for my very, very high-end clients, and I have to sift through 50 that have fucking treetop views of their neighbor's backyard, I'm really pissed off because that's 2 hours wasted from my life. Fuck you, you're a bad agent. But you guys will not do that because you guys are good agents and because, you know, you will hate them too. So if in doubt, talk to people about the fields, like what does this mean? Sometimes there's areas, like I just got a question the other day, that kind of mean the same thing. Some of them are optional, some of them are required. Like one of them was about, I don't know, a gym or something like that in an HOA. And she's like, the unit doesn't have a gym, but the HOA has a gym. It's asking me about rooms in the house. She's like, does that gym go there? I'm like, no, it doesn't. There's actually a section for condos that talks about the communal areas later, right? So don't just go with it, ask somebody. Because you're misrepresenting the property if you don't know what you're doing, even if it's an honest mistake. And like I said, it just takes forever. It takes a long time. So start your MLS entry, have people get it, refine it, hone it. You can you can save it as incomplete. And once you are ready to go live, and live date is what? It's the date your listing period starts on your contract. Although the listing contract costs me hear about my workaround for making that accurate yet flexible. So you'll go live on the MLS and that your listing is going to go all over the place, whether you like it or not. And any agent who goes in for listing appointments and tells the seller that their marketing effort is going to be more than yours. Yeah, right. Once it's on the MLS, it is everywhere. It's just everywhere. You know, it's like the bad sex tape, but in a good way that won't go away. Bad joke. I know. I mean, guys, can you give me a sympathy laugh every now and then? Jesus.
Well, lucky inside, like.
That's even worse, man. So, you know, we'll talk about that in listing presentation class more, but I want you to know that, like, once it's on the MLS, it's just out there in the world. All right, so you are going to also make sure that you set up broker caravan magazine ads if you need them. Okay, that's done through the MLS, and there are time restrictions on that. So if you're not aware what those are, the MLS is super helpful. They have something called the help desk. You can literally call them. They even work like after 5. They even work limited hours on the weekends. You can call them up and ask them any question on earth that's related to the MLS. They 100% know the answer. Whoever trained them, I want to meet them because I would like to have children with them. Let's see here. Clarify access and location of keys. So you might just have a copy of the house keys yourself. You might just have, you know, alarm codes, things like that. But if you work with a team, you might need a Google Drive because several people are managing that for you. Even if you're working on your own, guys, I guarantee you are going to need help. You need to have at least 2 really good friends in this office that you trust, who have your back, whose back you have in return. Because guaranteed, even if you only have 1 showing in an entire week, the second it comes time to do that showing, someone's gonna call you and say, I need to meet with you. I need to sell my house as soon as possible, and I leave town tomorrow. So you need a good friend who knows the house, who you trust, that your seller knows, that can do the showing for you. And you need to be able to do that for them also. The showings are really, really key to selling anything. So here's my recommendation. Make your friend, have their back. You're gonna need them anyways. Our job is really hard. It's so much better when you have friends that are doing it with you. So you can talk mass shit, so you can celebrate, so you can act stupid. It's just so much better when you're working your ass off and you like the person in the room next to you. My recommendation is that you have this friend, like I have my sellers leave for the photography appointment because we move shit around and kind of, you know, nitpick the place to move stuff around. But I'll ask them if they're available, like for the first 5 minutes of my photography appointment, because I bring whoever it is, in my case, my team, all of my team agents, unless they have a prior active business appointment or something as important as a buyer consult or listing presentation, is mandatory that they come and they see the property and they meet the seller, so the seller's comfortable with who they are, so that they know how to show it, I have a Google Drive that is just for my team that talks about, parking regulations on the street, lockbox codes if there's any lockbox, alarm codes, instructions about animals, anything that we need to know, even important stuff like people might ask questions about, like the HOA reserves or things like that. It's in a little Google Drive for whoever is helping you to show that listing. Okay, so you probably want to have that written out because I guarantee you will need help at some point. Also, it's very helpful in the case that you don't remember that you have a little app on your phone you can go into and pull that up anywhere. So yeah, make a friend, be a good friend, so that they're a good friend to you. All right, clarify access location, print open house. Okay, so also when you have a listing, what do you have? You have most of the time, very rare instances not, open houses. So what do you need to have? An open house sign, you have to have an open house sign. And then you have to have the ability to put the address on that open house sign. So easy as it sounds, you want to make sure it's actually the right size, as large as possible, that fits within whatever area makes sense on your open house sign to put that address. And they get dirty and they're a bitch and you have to stick them with, tape. It's a pain in the ass. Do it the night before. Do yourself a favor. Do it the night before. Okay. And if you're really, really all about it, put your signs out the night before. You know why? Because when you go to your open house, you don't want to be sweaty. You want to be looking really sharp and you want to feel great so that you can sell that house and pick up new clients. So take care of open house signs and all. It's fucking scary. You're parking illegally. You're in traffic. I mean, you want to put them in a good spot. It's fucking dangerous. When I was an assistant, I was like, fuck my life Tuesday and Sunday. I thought I was gonna die every day. I was in Brentwood too. Those fuckers are vicious on the road. Canyons homes where there's not even a room for one car, like I have to park my car, hope someone doesn't hit it, and me strategically parking the car to where maybe they'll hit the car first. Anyways, open house signs as soon as possible. You probably want to decide where you want them located also on a map so that you don't have to figure it out when it comes time to do it because it's already scary enough, like I said. All right, signs for access to buildings. So if it's a condo, it might not be easy to get into. A lot of condos have rules against keeping the door open. You might want to have one of those friends that you like so much help you with it if they have to man the door, if it's complicated. You might want to have directional signs in the building or little signs posted like, take elevator to the 3rd floor. Because last thing you want is the wire getting lost in the building. You want them to see the unit.
Put your phone number on.
And then we already talked about it. Note everything important in your showing instructions. That's what I was talking about. Instructions with animals, alarm codes, all of that. And make sure that you have the ability to have access to this at all times. If you have a key to your seller's house, if you have a designated person, maybe you ask your seller if it's okay that designated person holds on to a copy. Maybe you keep one in the office here somewhere, okay? But you always need 2. You need one that doesn't really get touched, and you need one on you at all times. One on you at all times, okay? Because I don't know about you, but if it's the difference between making a $5 million sale and not, and like getting up in the middle of date night dinner to go do a showing for one of the, it's always those asshole billionaire clients who think, no, that's not true. Normal people can be assholes too. It's all, it can happen, like in an instant, like split instant, you can sell or not sell. And your ability to show it might come down to whether or not you have that key in your possession. So it's in a way, and especially for you men, I imagine, who don't carry purses. Figure out a way to carry a bag that you're comfortable with and work on it hard. All right, guys, that's listing process, or that's you're welcome. That's listing process start to finish. Next class is offer to close, which is for bulk listing and buyer's agents, right?
Thanks.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone have any questions related to what we've covered today? No. Anyone at home?
Is it easy?
Are you guys still there? Do you love
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you.
No, we're good. I'm good.
Say that I'm doing photography, like interior photography.